Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I'm also the parent of an ADHDer and the relative of many more ADHD people. And I have been working with ADHD for longer than there's been ADHD. I'll explain that. ADHD or ADD wasn't even a diagnosis officially till 1980. I have a child born slightly before then who turns out had ADHD or has ADHD. So I was ahead of the bean counters that make diagnoses in the mental health area. And in 1987, they decided to call it ADHD for who knows what reason. It didn't make a lot of sense to us, those of us out in the field, but a lot of times that sort of thing happens. But anyway, now we have a lot more research than we had back then, and we know a lot more about ADHD than we did back then. And it also is because of an increase in the quality of test devices, that sort of thing, ability to do dopamine analysis and so on. And last week, I was talking to you about how to compensate for executive functioning problems. And that therein, it occurred to me that maybe nobody but other neuropsychologists in the audience knew what the heck I was talking about. Okay, the deal is roughly, when you're talking about diagnosing ADHD, especially in kids, you have two major categories. You have hyperactivity, impulsivity, and then you have the executive problems, time management, time sense, time awareness, working memory, control of attention, all those sorts of things. As an ADHDer matures, the more overt things like hyperactivity tend to go away or tend to be under better control. A lot of times, if you've got an adult who has been treated for everything else but ADHD, a lot of times they're like in my office, you'd see them doing something, playing with their fingers or tapping their foot or something like that. But that's about as bad as the hyperactivity part of things got. So when you're looking at an adult with ADHD, you're looking primarily at executive problems. Okay, what are the executive functions? Well, there's not a real specific agreement. Let's put it that way. There are some people who include more than one thing. People have, started out at early part of their academic careers, including some things, and then adding more later on, and so on. But basically, it's the kind of thing you would think of as thinking, being able to plan, having the necessary cognitive functions, be able to plan and organize and that sort of thing. The ones that are specific to ADHD and that are cause most of the problems for them probably are working memory issues, and that is a biggie. Okay, if you're not familiar with working memory, it is not the kind of memory you use in school very much. It's the kind of memory you use when you're interacting with people socially or in a work environment. It's I call it etch-a-sketch memory. Basically, it's the kind of thing where you're told something, you don't plan on remembering it forever. You just need to remember it till you get the job done. Okay, and typically it'll be, the boss will tell your ADHD person to go do 3 things, and he'll do one of them, maybe 2 of them, if he's lucky, and then he will totally have forgotten that there was another one, and he'll think he's done. And of course, that doesn't please the boss. Um, there's no hiding your hair to which one he remembers and which one he forgets. Doesn't have to do with which one's the most important or that sort of thing. They just don't remember it. And a lot of times this causes serious troubles in marriages. If one partner doesn't have ADHD and the other one does, and the one is for always saying, would you get me such and such and such and such? And, if it's the husband, she comes back in 30 minutes and he's watching a ball game on TV or something and has not done what she asked, any part of it. And some people will start to think that means something about their relationship. It really doesn't. It has to do with the ADHD, and that causes so many problems. If you've ever done therapy with a marital couple where one person has ADHD and the other one doesn't, it's interesting because the person who doesn't have ADHD or any experience with people who have ADHD cannot get their head around the idea that I only asked him to do this 10 minutes ago. What the heck? They think there's got to be more to it. He doesn't love me, that kind of thing. Or she doesn't love me. But the working memory part is probably the biggest issue. But ADHDers, executive functioning rather, is also about a problem with being organized. It can be anything from organizing to do a project for school or a project at work for that matter. It can also have to do with just being able to get out of the house on time in the morning. I have a son who's got ADHD, and when he wants to, he's back living at home for a little while, and he goes out, he has a meeting to get to or something like that. It takes him 3 tries to get out of the house. Oh, I forgot my phone. Oh, I forgot my charger. Oh, I forgot my water. That's the kind of thing that ADHDers do, and they will continue to do that. And best intentions don't have anything to do with it. Oh, I'll remember that. Sure, but they don't remember that, and that gets them into trouble. And so the big deal with all of this compensating for executive dysfunction. Oh, another big one. I forgot the time sense. ADHDers do not have the sense of passage of time that people who don't have ADHD have. They, 10 minutes is the same as an hour to them. It's kind of, oh, really? We were that long? There are some good things about that because it helps them when they don't have good time senses, that they sometimes will hyperfocus. That is, they will do something and just keep doing it for 10, 12, 14 hours. And if it has something to do with something that's good for work or school, fine, no problem. But many times it's got nothing to do with anything profitable. So it's just wastes their time. But if it's something that's focused on work, then you're just worried about them burning themselves out. And they frequently won't stop. They'll just keep going and going if they're in a hyper-focus phase. And they frequently they definitely need some kind of an external reminder to quit, or that they've spent enough time on this. That's why things like timers and, fancy wristwatches that you can set an alarm on, and even a kitchen timer is frequently a good thing. It's just anything that kind of grabs their attention and they can't ignore it, like an egg timer on the opposite side of the room from where they're working. so they have to physically get up to turn it off. That's just about perfect. Okay, that's executive functioning. Okay, now, another thing about executive functioning is emotional regulation. Okay, that is, ADHDers will tend to have not very good emotional control. They'll sputter and yell back at somebody who they think has insulted them, that sort of thing, and don't have very good control over that. So well, they have a lot of trouble in very disciplined environments. Once they learn, that you can't fool around with your drill sergeant or whatever, they do better. But they're still likely to respond impulsively and emotionally. And that also is hard on a relationship. Most ADHDers have a lot of trouble staying married, just because of that. He's always angry, or he's forgets what I want him to do, and things like that. So the whole part of this, they have trouble. Okay, working memory. If you have no working memory, you have troubles multitasking. You have no time sense. You have troubles organizing, planning to get things done on time. Okay, the other part of this is we know, and I've mentioned this pretty much every time I've done a session here, is we believe it's because they metabolize certain neurotransmitters faster than the normal person. The big deal is their dopamine levels are usually low, and dopamine is gives you that satisfaction that you did a good job and that sort of thing. It's because it's chronically low. That's what causes all these cognitive problems, the executive problems. And the other thing that's most characteristic of this sort of thing is that these are all functions that are in the frontal lobes, the front part of the brain. Okay, it's the biggest part of the brain. It's like I said, that's where executive functioning pretty much resides. The back part is more about the memory and that sort of thing. So basically, they do a pretty good job of memorizing things, but what to do with that information is usually a struggle. Okay, so what do we do then? ADHDers, especially if they aren't in treatment, any kind of treatment, very early, will tend to do a lot of denial. There'll be a lot of, oh, nothing wrong with me. I'm just a active boy or man, or I'm just an assertive woman kind of thing. It's either way, you're not thinking you've really got something going on with you, and as a result of that, you will tend to deny it and try to do things that as if you could just by an act of will make your working memory better or your attention better, that sort of thing. And it just is not going to work. But sometimes it's a real pill if you're working with an ADHD person to convince them that they need to use some kind of strategy to make up for the weaknesses in their executive functioning. And, as I said, externalize the executive functions. That means don't try to keep it up here. Set the timer or write it down in your day timer or dictate it in your day timer, depending on whether you're using a digital or a paper and pencil kind of organizer. but you need that. You need to have that stuff with you all the time. You need to have an organizer. You need to have a timer, and you need to use them. Okay, that a lot of times, folks are, I don't want to draw any attention to myself, so I'll just remember that. And then 15 minutes later, they have no idea what they were supposed to be remembering. So you have to actually use this stuff, okay? And it doesn't have to be so obvious that everybody else knows, but just, a lot of people take notes in meetings. A lot of people take notes when their boss is telling them something. People should take notes when the teacher's giving an assignment or delivering some kind of a lecture. I mean, the deal is it's not going to go away, and it's not because of anything you did wrong. It's just your brain's a little different than the neurotypical brain. And if you learn to compensate for that, learn to do what you need to do to make up for it, you can have a successful life. We still have, we have ADHDers that have been darn successful in life. But they had to learn how to control for the weaknesses that they have in executive functioning. Okay, I am still Terry Gingras, and I'm still a neuropsychologist. I'm also a coach, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned this the last couple of times, just because I'm really slowing down my private practice because I just can't get to enough people that way. So I'm trying to get. I'm doing coaching now. I'm doing a fair amount of it, mostly with ADHD executives or entrepreneurial executives, and I'm also, I do some family marital stuff as well. So my website is terrygingrassphd.com. And not my website, my web. Anyway, and you can get in touch with me there. We usually will do a 20 or 30 minute intake interview, and just to see if we're going to be able to get along with each other. So look forward to hearing from you if you're in need of some kind of services. And in the meantime, I will see you next week, and Happy New Year, and hope that 2024 is a little more calm and peaceful than 2023 has been. I'm tired. I don't know about anybody else, but I've had about enough. Okay, we will catch you later.